Hey, listen, we got some things that we gotta discuss. How we can affect the system and make it better for us. But first, we gotta start with the man in the mirror. Open your third eye and the vision's gonna be much clearer. We are revolutionary. We are visionary. And we stand resolute on those who pollute the minds of many. Revolutionary. We are visionary. And we stand resolute on those who pollute the minds of many, y'all. This is the Revolutionary Social Work Podcast, y'all.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Revolutionary Social Work Podcast. I think we are on episode number 6. I'm one of your hosts, Ace.
And I'm your other host, Alicia.
And we are here to follow up on our Health is Wealth episode, drinking our green smoothies. We're going to talk a little bit more about health. And I think that's actually a good place to start, these green smoothies, because often when people see me with these, they give me a sour look. Like, not that I'm bad for drinking them, I think, but that it looks gross. And I can say this is that several people have stayed with us in our house over the last, how many years? And very few of them will drink the smoothie. Most of them ask for a little teeny one if they do, and they eye it with distrust and distaste. And I honestly can't remember how I felt about them the first time I tried the green smoothies that you make. But I can say now that when I don't have them, I feel it in my body, in my energy, in my gut, in my digestion, and everything. And also, I miss the taste of it. I honestly love the taste of it now. And I can't remember how it was when I first started. And I will say that before I met you, there were a few times that I tried to put kale in a smoothie or something like that. And I had mixed results. And definitely I remember from my dad and my little brother one time, I made him a fruit smoothie. I can't remember what was in it, but there was some kale in it. And they were like, "You're nuts. I ain't drinking this shit." But anyways, what's in this smoothie?
Okay, we've got bananas, an orange, frozen mango, kale, and water. So it's really simple. Basic, the banana keeps it kind of creamy, but adds a lot of the sugars too. You got the citrus in there. The mango is somewhat creamy too, that tropical flavor. And then kale and water. And you're right, like if we don't have it, one, I realize I feel so dehydrated because this really hydrates me in the morning. And two, my body is craving that flavor. And from the research I've done, it's the nutrients and the vitamins and the minerals that we get from this. And then our body is like, where is it? What's going on? Why don't we have it? So, and we don't just do this for the podcast. Just make that clear. We have it every single morning, and we're running late this morning. So that's why we're having it right now. But yeah, we've had it every morning for probably years now. It's been quite a long time. It may have adapted a little bit. I think in Hawaii we had papaya in it every day, like just fresh papaya. So it's adapted a little bit, but it's so important for us. And I remember when it has been years because Zaid used to go to preschool. And so that's got to be like 5-6 years ago. And I used to put this smoothie in his little bottle. And I remember the preschool teachers would be like, we were thinking, what is that? And he is not going to drink it. And he would love it. He would absolutely love it. And one time I got called down from my office because we had the preschool in our office. And he had tipped the whole thing over his head. Like he was just immersing himself in this green smoothie. I had to clean him up. But yeah, this is really important for us, green smoothies.
And I think it's really telling, and we talked about this in the other Health is Wealth episode, but the way that capitalism, the way that advertisement dupes us, they hoodwink us into thinking certain ways about certain things, right? And so, I mean, literally, I've never had anybody we've had lots of people come over and stay with us over the years. Mm-hmm. I've never had anybody, I shouldn't say anybody, but nobody comes to mind. Actually, maybe when we did the podcast in Kailua and MT and them were there, I think they may have drank the smoothie.
Yep.
But other than that, people, look at us like we're nuts, we're crazy. But on the other hand, they wouldn't look at us like we were crazy if we fed our children Cocoa Puffs in the morning, or if we ate Cocoa Puffs, for example, or any equivalent of that sugary cereal. And just think about that. What does that say about us, about our society, about whatever, that it's normal, accepted, encouraged, okay but normal is the big word, normal,
Yeah.
to eat whatever the hell is in Cocoa Puffs or Trix or, like I said, whatever the equivalent is. That's normal, but yet you named off all the ingredients. Name the ingredients again.
Banana, orange, kale, mango, water.
Sounds like some pretty good ingredients. Pretty normal, healthy,
Oh,
whole
so good.
ingredients, right? And so the fact that this is so weird for everyone to drink this, but the alternative or whatever it is, whether it's a toaster strudel, a Pop-Tart, cereal, flavored oatmeal, whatever it is, it's just so telling about our society that we've been duped into not believing in this, but believing in the stuff that very well makes us feel bad, makes us gain weight, low energy, rots our teeth. I mean, there's a number of
It affects so
different
many
ways.
things. It affects how we
Mood.
can think, how we can move, all of our bodily functions. And I think something really important to say is when we talk about this stuff, we're not saying that we are perfect and we have it right and we've been doing this for forever. Like, this is a constant evolving journey for us. Like, yesterday, I did not eat very well yesterday, and I woke up feeling like it. I slept in because my body was like, what did you put in here? So we are not perfect and we're constantly evolving, but we think it's so important to talk about this stuff so we can all, as a collective, individually and as a collective, increase our consciousness on our health and what we're putting in our bodies and in our minds, so that we can all elevate. Because unless we are all at that elevated consciousness level, then the world is not going to get to a better place. So that's where this comes from. I think it's important to say.
Yeah, and I mean, we've been together for almost 10 years now, but just to put it in perspective, when we met, I'm trying to think of the stuff that was in our refrigerator when we first lived together. It would have been chocolate milk, orange juice. I don't know about soda. I think maybe mixed with alcohol. I don't think we still drank that much, but I think we had a little. But we would go and we would be walking down. I remember walking down Keamuku, stopping at on Keamuku Street and stopping at to get coffee. What's the coffee place?
Starbucks?
Starbucks.
Yeah.
And we stopped at Starbucks and we'd get this giant
blended frappuccino,
mocha
thing.
frappuccino.
Yeah, with espresso shots in there when we were studying.
Absolutely, but it's the sugar, really.
Yeah,
The espresso shots too, but the sugar. And in the freezer would have been pizza bites, Totino's pizza bites, frozen pizzas. What other kinds of crap were we eating? We ate out at fast food significantly. We were drinking a lot of alcohol. So my point here is that we're not in no way to judge anybody for the fact
At
for
all.
whatever you're eating or not eating or whatnot. The point of the matter is what we view as our objective and our responsibility with this platform and the podcast, et cetera, is to just share, to wake us up a little bit about the things that we are eating and the ways that we are being poisoned and we've been hoodwinked. Because many of us don't even know. I'd never looked at a label beforehand, never really considered it too much at all. So to get us to start to look at things and be a little bit more conscious and make subtle changes and to not criticize you for it, but to help you wake up a little bit and to, join us on this journey to feeling better, to coming along with feeling better makes us better parents. It makes me a better teacher, a better professor. It makes me better equipped to go out in the community and work and deal with folks.
yeah, exactly. And I think checking labels, and I think an important thing also is with this smoothie, you may think, well, I can't afford that. I can't afford the things that go in there. But in reality, I mean, a banana is like 37 cents. An orange, I don't know how much an orange is. If you can grow kale, then that's free. Or you can just grab some kale, which isn't too much. And then frozen mango, you can get a huge bag of frozen mango from Costco for like $10, and that lasts a couple of weeks if you're just making it for yourself. So in reality, if you compare that to another not as nutritious breakfast, it's really, in comparison, either less or about the same. But think about what you're putting in your body. You're getting a lot more bang for your buck, right?
And when you talk about that, when we talk about that we can't afford it, what if you flip the script from a different perspective and look at it as that you can't afford not to drink this, and you can't afford to eat the Cocoa Puffs and whatnot because you want to be a healthy person and you want to move forward into your life. You know, cancer rates for young people are skyrocketing through the roof. And I don't want to even mention it too much on here. We want to go a different direction. But it is a reality that folks are experiencing cancer at a much higher rate. And if we're honest about it, it's from a variety of reasons. And most of them equal us as the people being hoodwinked into consuming or being exposed to something that's not good for us that causes cancer. And one of those categories would be the food that we eat. So I would argue that, you know, saying that we can't afford to eat healthy, you can't afford not to.
Right. We are, I think I said this in a previous podcast, but we are so much more profitable to the food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the government in general. We are so much more profitable sick. And so this may sound like a conspiracy theory or something like that, but it's reality that we are brainwashed into thinking that it's okay for us to eat these foods on a regular. And it's okay for us to get to a point we then need to take medication to counteract or heal us from the sickness that probably could have been prevented. I think a huge thing in America, and I'm just going to talk specifically to America because that's where a lot of our social work career is, specifically in America, preventative care is pretty low. I mean, I worked in dialysis for a number of years, and the preventative care before end-stage renal disease is pretty crappy. But the dialysis care, there's so much money going to dialysis because there's so much money to be made in dialysis. And so we are profitable sick, but we are profitable to ourselves. And we're going to live longer lives. We're going to be able to do more things with ourselves, with our minds, live a happier, higher quality of life if we take these things seriously. And it's not about changing your whole entire life, but it's making like these small changes, just little differences, right?
And we have evidence of that right now in real time because I had something that was affecting my gut, affecting something. I couldn't figure out what it was. And I guess I'm still not 100% sure, but I think that one way that we can try to resolve those things is making little changes and seeing what works. And the smoothie, it used to have
almond milk.
Almond milk in it. And let's just say Alicia was very happy with the level of flatulence that was happening at the time. She's very blessed and privileged at that
You're
point
really
in
putting
time.
yourself out here.
But yeah, that's one of the things. So we figured it didn't work, and you did some little bit of background research on what's actually in the almond milk, because we were trying to get away from dairy. Not saying we don't consume it at all, but we've also identified issues there. So we very much went on to limiting our dairy, but we found that almond milk is actually not a fantastic alternative. Why is that?
It is not the business. I was shocked. And this is one thing where I kind of kick myself because I do look at labels quite a lot. And I don't think I looked at the almond milk label as early as I should have, because I thought, oh, this is a nut milk, a healthy alternative. I have some, I'm not allergic to dairy, but back when I was a kid, I came up intolerant for dairy. So I really try and steer clear. And so almond milk is something I had for a while. And then I looked at the labels and the amounts of stuff in there, like the gums, and I can't remember what it's called, but there's something else in there that's really not good for our bodies. And so I think it was really affecting your digestive system. And I would put almond milk in the smoothie. Sometimes it would be just almond milk, or I'd mix it, almond milk and water. But we changed it. We took the almond milk out of the smoothie maybe a month ago now. And it's been so much better on your digestion. And I've also changed the type of almond milk I get, because sometimes the kids will have like muesli or these like heritage flakes that don't have too much sugar in it. And so they'll have milk with that. And so now I found, and look in your stores, because it's really hard to find. I've only found it in some Fred Meyer's here in Anchorage. But it only has 3 ingredients: the nuts, water, and a little bit of sea salt. So really look at your almond milk if you're drinking it, or any like oat milk, soy milk, anything like that. There's a bunch of crap in there that you don't need to be drinking. If you can find the almond milk alternatives or the oat milk alternatives that only have 3 ingredients, that's beneficial. Or what did we also find out when I started making almond milk? But I haven't made it since we left Fairbanks. But that's so simple. You just soak almonds in a bowl overnight or 1 or 2 nights. Rinse that out. Put it in a blender with some water. I don't add anything else. You can put like vanilla extract or salt. just water, blend it up, and then strain it through like a cheesecloth or a strainer, like the small hold strainers. And then you got almond milk, and it lasts like a week. So it takes a little bit of time. And right now, I probably do have the time, but I'm being a little bit lazier right now and just buying the 3-ingredient one. But if you're interested, that is a great way to make nut milk yourself for cheap, not the added ingredients.
Yeah, and that seems so esoteric in the modern day world to make your own milk. But I want to remind folks is that not too long ago in our human history, we were very connected to the food that we consumed. I mean, like really recently, many of our lifetimes. And the further, obviously, you go back in the 20th century, in the 1900s, the more and more connected to our food you were. You think about it, you probably raised your own for the most part, or for a large part. And then even if you shopped for food or produce or whatever at a store or whatever, it's typically one person removed, right? 1 degree of removal from you. You know the person that did raise the food or grow it or whatever. And now we're disconnected and we're lost and we don't know what we're doing. And so I want to be very clear because I've received some feedback, some emails and some messages and this and that. And first of all, I really appreciate it when folks do reach out and let me know what they think about things. But lots of folks have reached out about the Health is Wealth episode, and most of it, I think the feedback was positive. But several folks did, express concern that we were kind of picking on people that weren't able to eat healthy, and talked about, that eating healthy can be expensive, especially we're in Alaska, right? So Alaska could be significantly different in some ways because, right, it's the Arctic, it's cold, it's there's not the level of produce or farming or anything. Like you don't see a lot of livestock here in Alaska just because of the extremely cold weather, right? And so everything's not going to be accessible. And when it is accessible, it's expensive. My dad has a story about when he lived in Barrow, Utqiagvik back in the day. And he also did some time in the village, Anaktuvik Pass, and he was going back to the village, or he was headed into Barrow from Anaktuvik Pass, and one of the villagers, one of the women, he wanted to borrow their 4-wheelers or something like that, their ATVs, and he went and borrowed them, and she said, "Oh, no worries, just when you go to Barrow, bring me back a watermelon." And he was like, "Oh yeah, no problem." And I think he said, and this was back in the 90s, so even at double the cost, and he said it was like $100 for the watermelon. So that just gives an indication, and you can go on YouTube and look at videos in Barrow, Alaska they have videos of people walking through the store, how much stuff costs, and I'm sure it's even inflated more after the pandemic and whatnot. But it's it's very understandable to think that way, that we can't afford to eat healthy, that it's too expensive to find good food, and we're busy. And I know this too, because even for a long time when I'd switched to eating more healthy and whatnot, I still had this habit, the McDonald's habit. And, every once in a while, and then sometimes we'd string it to a couple times in a once in a while, I'd take the kids and we'd go to McDonald's. It's so easy. But the simple thing for me there was, after not eating that kind of food very often, when I do eat it, I feel like shit, feel terrible. And so I don't do it anymore. But I just want to be very clear. I'm not criticizing you if you don't eat healthy, or if you don't eat as healthy as us, or you're not, whatever. I'm not saying that at all, because I've been there, and most of my life I was that person. So I'm not sitting here criticizing you, criticizing my former self at all. What I'm saying is that you, me, we have been hoodwinked. We've been tricked to look at food in a way that is not beneficial for us, that poisons us, that kills us, that gives us cancer. We've been duped so much that we care about our children and we would do anything for them. We would die for them, but we would also poison them. And I'm not saying you're literally, deliberately poisoning your children. What I'm saying is that I realized through my own experience that I was allowing my children to consume things that were not good for them, that were bad for them, that can cause them to become sick in the present. It can cause them to be sick over time in the future. And I realized that I could make several changes that would improve that in myself and in my family and my children. And that's simply like looking at the labels, paying attention to where your food comes from, avoiding having other people like fast food make your food. There are a number of ways and ways you can look at and things that you can do. And so, again, to be clear, I'm not criticizing you. what I'm doing is, what I believe I'm doing is using the platform and using my experience and what I know and what I've learned to try to help you awaken yourself in a similar way that I was awakened and I'm still waking up from. And it's not your fault. You've been hoodwinked. You have so many things going against you. You have literally the tobacco giants that tricked everyone into smoking cigarettes and giving themselves lung cancer, bought out the food companies after that, and they're the ones telling you and tricking you into thinking this is food and this is not. This is good and this is not. But we're wrong, and they've even duped our intuition, and that goes in when you talk about something like Coca-Cola. It's the perfect example. Because we've taught how much Coca-Cola, does it have 36 grams of sugar or something? 39, so whatever, so much sugar, it's ridiculous. You couldn't put that shit in your oatmeal. You couldn't put it in your coffee. You have to have the best food scientists in the world to figure out how to trick you into being able to put that much sugar into a little can of Coke and for you to consume it. But right, when you see Coca-Cola, you see a commercial on TV with a happy polar bear or Santa Claus, very Christmassy, very family-oriented. Often, you can find Coca-Cola in our favorite movies. Even if you're just sticking to Christmas, think about Home Alone. Yeah. One of the very first scenes, it's about the kid drinking too much Coke and pissing the bed or something like that. And I think even Kevin has a sipping a Coke. Mm-hmm. I can't remember, but at least the little boy that wets the bed. And so you've been seeing it and you've been seeing it and you've been seeing it for years and years and years, and we think that it's normal. Well, it is normal, I guess, for us now. It has become normalized. But it shouldn't be, and it's wrong. And I'm not saying, you're committed in a major sin if you have a can of Coca-Cola. What I'm saying is that you've been duped, and I've been duped, and I was duped, and we're all duped into believing. We've been hoodwinked into believing that it's good, that Coke is good.
Mm-hmm. Or even okay.
But it's not. And then you hear people talk about, like, you'll hear like the executives from Coca-Cola being challenged on it or whatever. I saw one thing where a dude was putting all the things of sugar into a cup and showing how much it was. And a lot of times the argument is like, look, basically we believe that our consumers are responsible people and they can use our product in moderation. But how do you use something that has 5 times the amount of your daily intake of sugar in a can? Right. And sometimes we're talking about a bottle. Sometimes we're talking about a big gulp. Sometimes we used to be talking about supersize. We're talking about the large Cokes, which is the cheapest one, all things considered, from the movie theater, right? Like they do it, they rig it so like a small is really expensive and a medium's a quarter more.
Might as well get the large.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can I just say something on that? Because, yes, we are all responsible adults and we can make responsible decisions for ourselves. But let's remember, sugar is addictive. It is addictive just like other substances are addictive. And so having the way that it's marketed to us, it becomes addictive. And so it's not so easy to just say, okay, I'm just going to have half a can and save the other half for tomorrow. One, it goes flat and then it's gross, even more gross. But also it's addictive. And so they know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. And so we have to have dialogue on this because not enough people are talking about it. More people are now. But not enough.
It's uncomfortable.
It is. It is uncomfortable. It is.
You start talking about something that you've been doing for so long and been seeing the world in a certain way, and you're asked to look at it differently, and that shit's hard. And I empathize with you, and I empathize with me, with us, because it's hard. And it's hard when everything in the world is working against you. I dare you, go watch Monday Night Football this coming up week, or Sunday Night Football, whatever you want. And tell me what kind of commercials do you see? And it's interesting, and I've always wondered this. I wonder how nefarious it is, because when you oftentimes hear like NBA player or NFL player, and they talk about where they're eating or where they had their meal. Like I remember specifically one time Kobe had a really good game and they asked him what he ate before. And he said, Big Mac from McDonald's. But I think he was also sponsored by McDonald's as well. There's other ones where like, there's so many examples. And I hear them talking about fast food. But I wonder, like, are they paid to say that? And if so, that's pretty messed up for an athlete to tell folks that they eat that kind of food.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something straight up, like as far as say like LeBron James, we'll just use him as an example, a prime athlete, right? I can guarantee you he's not eating that food. I guarantee you he has, in order to have that kind of longevity and that kind of body and whatnot, that he knows exactly what he eats and then goes and does a Mountain Dew commercial and tells you to drink it.
Doesn't he have a Mountain Dew commercial?
He's
this
been
stuff
on Mountain Dew.
Is
he was on Sprite before that.
All of them are, right? All of them. Steph Curry's on some, all of the big role models for a lot of kids are on these commercials for Mountain Dew, for Gatorade, for all these things. Why aren't we just telling kids to drink water? I don't get it. Why are we not telling kids to just drink water or drink some H3O2 from fruits or drink coconut water? I don't know. That has electrolytes in it.
Yeah, and I don't have any evidence of this, but I'd bet $1 million that the little Gatorade cups that the folks that the players have on the court, that they either contain water or they contain a watered down version of the Gatorade.
I swear I've seen that thing spill before, and there is no blue Gatorade coming out or whatever color it is.
I've seen yellow, I think, when they're dumping it on the...
Really?
But I think also that's another... And I don't have all the evidence right here, but back in the days, I think the Gatorade was a little bit differently. The yellow Gatorade, it was more... It wasn't so sugary. And matter of fact, you used to be able to buy it yourself, and in order to get it to taste like store Gatorade, you had to put a shitload of sugar in it, more than it said.
Gosh, this is, that kills me. The role models in our children's lives are promoting these things and not promoting just a basic healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, well, they're being paid to do that. Okay, so that's, I mean, we can see, I think it's very selfish to be an athlete and to not eat those foods yourself, and then to trick people into thinking that you do drink it, and that even to some level that their performance might be enhanced or something. I know they even kind of make fun of that in the commercials these days, but you can't tell me that the kids, you know? Yeah, but I think that that brings us, you know, we're talking about athletes and stuff and saying that they have responsibility, but so do we. We're social workers, right? But we talked about this, I'm not going to get too much into it, but often you go to a social work event, and it's with any other kind of similar event. I'm not just picking on social workers here, but the food's going to be like pizza and soda. It's not going to be healthy. I've been to several social work events, cohort things, all sorts of things, and the food is not good at all. It's not healthy. Matter of fact, at this event I went to, I'm not going to put it out there what it was, but I'm a part of a certain thing where we go and we're catered the food. And oftentimes when I'm there, one of the people that delivers the food to us, that works there, they bring everybody like an ice cream bar, and at like 9 in the morning. And one time I was there with one of my kids and tried to give it to my kids. But and everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but many of the people describe it as, oh, how nice. And I'm not doubting the person's motives. I imagine fully that she's trying to be nice. But is it nice to deliver people ice cream at 9 in the morning? Is it nice, or is it really not nice? And I would argue the intention is obvious. Again, her intention is obviously to be nice. But I don't think giving my 4-year-old an ice cream at 9 in the morning is actually a nice thing to do. And I actually think it would really bother her and cause her gut problems and all sorts of things at 9 a.m.
Yeah. Same with, sorry, would you have continue your thought?
I just want to say that as social workers, we have a responsibility. And one way is to do that, like if you're going to purchase food for whatever reason and I get it, Little Caesars pizza and soda and a bottle of soda is cheap. The soda part, you could easily eliminate that, and we could have some water. Make them use their own money on the soda. So I get it, it's cheap. Sometimes we only have a little bit of money, and that's what we have. But we've got to find a way to be creative, and that has to be unacceptable for us to act and behave as a leader in such a way. Another part of it is we're all obviously free to do whatever we want in our own time or whatnot, but we ought to be careful about the way we model things. I don't think it's appropriate to, like, for example, bring a big gulp soda to a session with someone. If you want to drink that on your own, you fully have the freedom to do so. And we've already talked about our views on that aspect of health. But you are a free person, and I totally respect your right to do that. But I think we have a responsibility as a social worker to model something different. And we always talk about evidence-based this and evidence-based that. Well, if we were following the literal evidence that's indisputable, we wouldn't be feeding the people we care about, that we're role modeling for, I should say, pizza and soda, or the equivalent, whatever. I'm just not trying to pick on pizza and soda. But we wouldn't. And so we should model something different in the way that in the things that we're consuming, especially in public, especially around them when we're in the role model state. But I would say in our personal lives as well, but especially in our social worker roles, Don't make it so it's not okay for yourself to buy those kinds of food. Make it not okay for you to consume those kinds of foods, or for example, glorifying alcohol after you went out for a night. And so basically, this is what I want to say. We are going to start offering these social worker challenges. And this is my first ever social worker challenge. And what I want you to do is I want to challenge you to use your imagination. And I want you to imagine yourself. You can close your eyes or whatever. And I just want you to take a moment, and I want you to imagine yourself healthier. Whatever that means. We're all at different levels. We all have different bodies. We're different ages, life experiences. We're all at different parts of our journey on our road. But wherever you're at on that journey, I want to imagine yourself healthier. What would you look like in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years? What about even a month or a week if you change things? How would you feel? How do you think you would feel? How do you think it would change, like, your perception of the looking glass self, how other people saw you? Do you think you would have more energy to do the things that you would want to do? So I challenge you to think about those things and then to put them into action and think about little ways that you can make a difference. And don't feel defeated if you can't accomplish all of your health and fitness and all of your health goals right away. And instead look at it as you were headed the wrong direction and now you're going the right direction. So however fast you're going, you're heading in the right direction to get where you need to go. And that's very, very significant. You think about the difference of heading the wrong direction and heading the right direction. So that's what I want to challenge you to do. Use your imagination. Imagine how it feels. Put it out there in the universe that you want to change, that you want to be more healthy. And then put little things into action and let it go to work and see how it subtly changes your life. Start checking the labels once in a while or all the time. Read them. Just check them. Even if you still eat the food, read the label. Acknowledge it. Look it up. See what the stuff is. Slowly, little by little, piece by piece, your life will start to change and it will snowball. And you'll start talking to other people that are doing the same thing. And you'll be on social media, and instead of watching the Coca-Cola commercial, you're going to watch Dr. Aris Latham talk about how you can drink coconut water with electrolytes in it to make you feel better rather than rather than bottled water. He might teach you how to make a papaya pie versus, not the ice cream bar. I'm just saying, you might come across some other folks that are homesteading and grow and raise their own food and might teach you how to do a little bit. That's another thing. When we met, neither of us have ever gardened before. And we both started off very small, like little flowers and pots out on the lanai, the balcony. And then next thing you know, we grew some kale and some peas and some other stuff that died and got infested. And then we moved to another place, and we had in Juneau, and we started growing lots of stuff. And our last place in Fairbanks, we had a huge garden full of all sorts of stuff. And so, as you can see, like, if we were just trying to go all in that first year, we would have been an ultimate failure. And we continue to fail, right? But we keep learning from it. Yeah. And even go further than that. Finding the farmer's market, locating them, seeing where you can get some local food. That's another part I would challenge. Try to eat food from where you're at. And it could be hard, like I was talking about Fairbanks, Alaska earlier, or Barrow, Alaska. Shit's going to be hard. But if you look at it, if people are healthy and overweight in those areas, it's from the soda, not from the food that they eat, because lots of people eat indigenous subsistence gathered food, right? Which is extremely about as healthy as you can get, the most healthiest of healthy foods. It's nutritious, it's connected to the earth, to your location, it's place-based, all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But then when you wash it down with the sodas and the alcohol and all of that other stuff, that's where we run into the trouble, right? Yep, exactly. I love that one, the imagination, because when I just thought about it for a minute as you were talking, imagining how I want to feel in a week, 2 weeks, the amount of energy is a big one for me. I often have iron deficiency, but there's other things that I can do. And when I have too much sugar, my energy is depleted and my body is all I can think of is fighting to process all that sugar. So sometimes I go through waves. And so for me, I love that challenge. I'm really going to work on cutting back on the sugar again. And it's usually the weekends, let's have a treat. But when I don't have it for a long period of time, then I notice when I do have it, the big changes.
And that's another thing, if I can just say, with being kind of hoodwinked in this way, is when we eat something for long periods of time, it becomes normal to ourselves and to our body. And so that we think that's how it just is. That's how our body is going to be. That's how our digestion is. That's how our sleep is. That's how our thought process is. It just becomes that is how it is. And then even when we start to change things, I had a roommate once say, like, let's eat some more vegetables. And she didn't feel well. She was changing the food she was eating, and she started to not feel well. And I think what was happening is she was, what's the word, kind of withdrawing from the other stuff, like less sugar, less processed foods, and putting stuff in that her body wasn't used to. But that just shows me how important it is to be conscious about it and to think, is this my normal? Is this okay? Or is this a normal just because I've done it for so long? And then I need to try different things. So I think that's really important to remember. I love that challenge. And I have one too when we're ready.
Yeah, I just want to add the one thing that, going back to being hoodwinked about the food is that they're most definitely using the most up-to-date scientists and scientists available to trick you not just trick your mind, not just make you think that this food is good or appropriate or that you like it, but it literally tricks your body and your taste buds and your palate. Yep. They use the right formula, so you're going to be craving. Your body's literally going to be craving them, even though it's detrimental. And so, extremely, extremely nefarious. And, that's my invitation to you. Wake up just a little bit. Open your eyes. It's all right there in front of you. Reconnect yourself with your food, with the fuel that you're putting into your body. And one thing before you deliver your challenge, too, we'll have to talk more in depth about this another time. But the idea of brands. Try not to look at things as eating a brand, right? So we say that you're buying a box of Frosted Flakes, but really it's a cardboard box with a plastic bag full of a bunch of different chemicals and maybe some whole foods, but for the most part, a bunch of chemicals that they concocted, not to keep you healthy or to fill your belly or to make, to improve your life in any way or to keep you safe or healthy in any way, shape, or form, but in order to make the most possible money off you in any way, shape, or form, to trick you into thinking that you need it, that it's good for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and that you trust this brand. But they should be the least trustworthy things that you see. The very best foods that you could possibly have probably won't have a brand. I'm not saying that there's no brand that can be healthy. My point is that the bigger the brand, the more likely that shit is not good for you and that it's, they're doing everything they can to get you to spend as much money as you can, and they don't give a shit if it makes you sick or not. As a matter of fact, they may have some investments in that field that they can make a little extra cash on you afterwards. Yeah. And it's that nefarious. It's that bad. I mean, there's literally some rich people that are sitting around, on their yachts and in their mansions, eating fine whole foods prepared for them by somebody else, while, nickel and diming you for the stuff that's poisoning us and making us feel bad. Mm-hmm. So that's all I got. I know you got an important challenge that's related. Yeah, very much related. And I say this probably on every podcast, but the soda thing, I just think it's such an important step for us to make. And I remember I was just thinking very clearly when I stopped drinking soda like regularly. I was 14 years old, and because it was Lent, like when you do like 40 days of kind of giving something up. I'm not a Christian, but this was something that was very much like in school. Everyone would do Lent. And so when I was 14, I gave up soda. And so I did it for 40 days. I didn't drink any soda, where previously I'd had it probably a few times a week. And then after it, I didn't want it. And I went on a ski trip and didn't drink any soda, just drank water. And I felt amazing. And then I never really went back to like regularly drinking soda. So my challenge to you is change at least one drink. If it's soda or if it's like an energy drink, even if it's like coffee or a Starbucks drink, at least one drink each day. Change it and just have natural spring water or like a coconut water, unflavored, just natural coconut water. Just one drink. If you can change at least one, if you can do more, beautiful. But at least one to just water.
And one thing that I was looking up before, when we talk about cost, is a lot of people will say, well, I can't afford to eat healthy or to drink these things to just be more healthy. Then I looked up and I remembered you can get a bottle, like it's a 1 gallon bottle of spring water, natural spring water from Fred Meyer. And it's $1.79, I think, or $1.59. And then a box of soda, so 12 cans, 12 ounces, which is about the same-ish as a gallon, is $12.99. I mean, how can we say that we can't afford to eat healthy if we just start with what we're drinking? $12.99 versus $1 something. We can drink water. We can replace things for water. So we've been brainwashing this way to think that it's okay to have these energy drinks and these sodas, even the zero sugar, right? The zero sugar things, it has like alcohol sugars in it, other stuff that is terrible for our digestion. You may as well just have the sugar. So those two, replace them if you can. At least one time a day, if you can replace that with a large glass of water. That is my challenge. And I really would love to hear if anyone does it and how they feel. And note also the attachments that come up. Because when you start to do these things and then you notice like, oh, I just want a soda. What is that attachment? We have to question that. What is it about it? Are you craving the taste? Are you craving the comfort?
Everything. They're craving the sugar. We are craving the taste. We're recovering the brand. We're craving the pop when you
crack it open.
When you do the pop of the can. It goes for beer as well. But even if you notice when you pop the lid, it also does it. Mm-hmm. It also does it. All of those things are, that's science used against you to get you addicted. You're addicted to all those things.
I mean, think of social workers. We all know about Pavlov, right? Pavlov's dogs and the classical conditioning experiment. What was it, a bell or something? And then the dogs would salivate and they'd be given food. I can't remember exactly what the experiment is, but just showing that they have the science behind it. There's a trigger and then we have a response. And that is the same thing. We crack it open, you salivate and you're like, yeah.
The wrapper. We had some people staying at our house a couple years ago, and just the sounds that I could hear because they ate much differently between the sodas and the candy wrappers and many different kinds. But that's what I would hear. I would hear the crack of the sodas, and I would hear the candy wrap. You'd hear them very distinctly. Yeah. I think it's even the same with like Doritos or lots of potato chips and
the bag. Yeah. Can I say one last thing before I know you have a thought? But I just really, I want us to lean into those attachments and the discomfort that comes up with it, because I can think of so many things that I'm attached to and the discomfort when I'm like, should I stop doing this or eating this? And then I'm like, avoid, put it out of my mind and move on to the next thing. Please, think about that attachment just for a second longer and think, why am I so attached to this? Why am I trying to avoid it?
Mm-hmm. And I just want to add one final thought about the water soda discussion. And it's this, and you've heard this from your clients. I've heard it from people, I've heard from parents. But it could be, you hear this in many ways. I just don't like water. I don't like the taste of water. I can't drink it. My kids don't like it. They won't drink it. Well, I'm going to be on. This is one of the times where I'm just going to be honest with you. Yeah, I'm speaking to you. If you've said that before, and you said it recently, and I've said it before, but it's been a while, but I've said it. Me too. I've said it before. I just want to say, you've been hoodwinked. It's time to wake up. You can definitely drink water. Water's very good. It's the most tastiest, greatest thing in the world when you're thirsty. I promise you. And if you go to water and then you drink some soda when you're thirsty, you're going to basically gag on that shit because it doesn't quench your thirst at all. And so if you're saying to yourself that you can't drink water, you don't like the taste, whatever the case may be, you've been hoodwinked. It's time to wake yourself up. It's a very simple thing that you can do to improve your life. Drink some water. Better yet, go find a spring somewhere and drink the water for free. I know it's hard, but they're still out there. Yeah,
if you're blessed to have the spring nearby. I missed that when we were in Utah and we had the spring, but in Fairbanks too, and we go to Fox.
And topic for another day, and we've never actually done this. I mean, I've done it before, but never on our own. But he says he's never drinking water, regular water from a bottle or a tap. I think he says in 20 years or so, I can't remember, but because he drinks coconut water, baby coconuts. He cuts off the top and drinks the water from them. And he says I need to know more about this, but it's very intriguing that he argues that the water you drink from a tap or from a bottle or whatever is dead water. I'm not saying it's bad. It's all it does is just water and hydrates you. Whereas when you get your water from a fruit, it's full of electrolytes and it's alive. It's live water and much better for you. And that's what you're supposed to be getting your hydration from. So we're gonna have our brother MT come and join us in a minute. And Alicia's got to take off. She's got.
It's already that time.
You got some women's group or something, huh? We're not invited to.
I'm excited. It's a new moon. So new moon, I think, was a couple of days ago. So it's a new moon women's circle where we're going to go hike into the forest, sit as a group, and get deep into discussion around this new moon energy. But before, can I say one more thing on what we were talking about?
Why are you asking me? I'm not your boss.
I thought you were kicking me off. So I also just want to say about why water may not taste so good. So imagine if we're drinking all of the sugary drinks. Again, sugar, addictive. It's just like any other substance. We have, what are they called? I can't think of but taste buds that are getting those hits every time we have that sugar, right? And then there's things in our brain that are getting the hits from the sugar as well. So, of course, water's not going to taste, we may say not good, but it's going to taste different. So we have to almost train ourselves. And I think that's why it was so important for me back when I was a teen. I was like, I'm just not going to drink it at all because I want to retrain like what my taste buds want. And you'll notice that things taste a lot sweeter once you reduce the sugar. Things taste even more sweeter, even like a fruit. You know, like if you're used to eating a lot of candy or sugary cookies or soda, fruit may not taste as sweet. If you stop eating that for a number of days, and then you eat some fruit, it will give you that sugar kick as well. So just think about that as well.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to, maybe you're still here for a minute or two.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to address one of the values of revolutionary social work is that it's strictly nonpartisan. And I feel like there's some confusion about what we mean by that. And so it's one of the things where people have been reaching out to me, received feedback on it, mixed results. But the biggest thing that I have, the issue that the most people have expressed concern to me about is that we are, I should say that I think sometimes they're addressing me specifically, but us in revolutionary social work, we're not hard enough on the Republicans, that you hear us talking about Democrats. And I wanted to address that specifically because some people have hinted that perhaps that makes us Republicans or Trumpers or it makes us sympathizers or something along those lines. But that couldn't be further from the truth. I'm for sure not a Republican, and I'm for sure not voting for Donald Trump, and I've never considered doing so. But I'm also not a Democrat, and I've also never considered voting. I shouldn't say I've never considered, because I did consider it. Mm-hmm. But I've never considered, let's put it this way. I am not considering voting for the Democrats right now at all in any way, shape, or form. And the reason that you can deviate from me if you'd like, mm-hmm. but I believe that the reason why we focus on Democrats so often and not on the Republicans, because in the field of social work, we would just be an echo chamber. Everybody's already talking about that. And where we feel that there is a gap, the hole that needs to be filled is that you need equal critical scrutiny, critical thought, critical reflection, critical dialogue regarding the other side of the same coin. And I'm going to tell you about another, I'm going to talk directly to you again. And this is would be to like my previous self as well. But if you think the Democrats are like one part of the resistance, or if you think that the Democrats are the good guys or whatever, I'm sorry, but you've been hoodwinked again, just like you have with the soda. I go back to the biblical saying, and I've said this in other podcasts, but you have to take the plank out of your own eye before you can help your brother or your sister take it out of theirs. And I'm sorry about it, but if there's something that could epitomize the following of the Democrats today, it would be that idea of just walking around with a huge plank in your eye while constantly cursing about some other people with the plank that they need to get the plank out of their eye because they're dangerous. They're walking around and they're going to hurt somebody. They're going to run into somebody. They're going to walk off a cliff or something while running around frantically doing the exact same thing. So we criticize spend some time in critical reflection, critical thought, critical dialogue regarding the Democratic Party because that's what's needed and that's where the hole is. That's where the gap is. If we didn't see social workers criticizing Donald Trump and Republicans, be sure about it, we would do it.
Right.
But what else is there to say? People talk about he's a liar, this and that. Well, like I already knew
We already know that. And I think a key point is the NASW have literally endorsed the Democratic Party. And so that's why we're engaging in critical dialogue as well, because they are saying that they represent us as social workers. And that's so false. It's so far from the truth. And so it's important for us to have these conversations. I cannot vote because I'm not a US citizen, but same thing. I wouldn't consider voting for the Republican Party because they do not represent me at all. But I wouldn't consider voting for the Democratic Party at this point because they also don't represent me. And so that's why we talk about the values that do represent us. And then no one candidate is ever going to be perfect. That's why we talked about RFK and being the things he's talking about with health, for example. It represents our values somewhat. And so we talk about that. Does it mean that we completely endorse him? No. But we have to be talking about the values that represent us and that are important and have dialogue on that and be critical about people who are not representing that. And so I think that's where a lot of that conversation has come from.
Well, and I think when you think like a partisan, when you think I'm a Democrat and I'm good and they're Republicans and they're bad, well, the RFK is the perfect example because whether I don't agree with everything about him at all. Like I think his stance on Israel is basically
Bullshit.
He's a little, put it in British language, he's a little wanker
Right.
When it comes to it. But on the other hand, he's literally the only politician that I hear talking about the health is basically synonymous with health as well, to make America healthy again. And it's not even like superficial shit. He's literally, I see him calling out, corporations and for poisoning us and going deliberately through, systematically, categorically through some of the foods that cause us problems and saying that he's going to change that. And so if I were partisan, a Democratic partisan, I shouldn't say if I were. I think when I see Democratic partisans and they look at somebody like RFK, they say the V word, he's a whatever, anti whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I can't listen to him because of that. And then later you could say, I can't listen to him because he's joined the Republicans or he's joined Donald Trump, so I can't listen to him. But the problem is he's the only one that you could listen to if you wanted to hear a politician or a potential politician talk about these things and making us healthy. Mm-hmm. And so I believe, and I think that we believe, and that it represents revolutionary social work values, is to remain partisan and to
Nonpartisan.
Yeah, to remain nonpartisan and to look at each and every issue individually, each and every politician individually, as much as we can, and be very doubtful about these politicians because we have all of our modern history to show us the motives and the deeds of typically of politicians, and so you should be very, very wary of them no matter what. We're not Republican and we're not Democrat and we don't affiliate a line or in any way, shape, or form or even consider doing so. We may be down the road, we may be willing to consider, I don't even like using the word third party because it juxtaposes the two other parties as the main parties. And while they may be that way because it's forced upon us, it shouldn't be that way. And so I could see maybe doing some work in that regard. But even there, I'm very wary.
Possible. I don't think there will ever in our lifetime be a candidate who is hitting every one of the things that we believe in, ever. So even if there's someone that we think is worthy of endorsing in that way, there would still, we better still have critical dialogue on that person. They're not going to be perfect. And so for anybody, I think when the whole, the initial time with Trump was happening and it was like, well, if you don't vote for Democrat, then you're saying you're voting for Trump even if you don't, like, right, by default. That is bullshit again. Like, just because this one doesn't represent us, then it's our fault that somebody else gets in. Like, it's ridiculous. So we can't be presented with two shitty candidates and not vote for them and then say, well, it's your fault that the shittier one got into office. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. So we will always be, and people call us out if we change in this aspect, but we will always be having critical dialogue on any candidate that is put in front of us, and we will always be looking at the values that they represent, knowing that no one is perfect.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you two of my main reasons, which should also bother you about the Democrats. And one would be that they are an echo chamber of the Republicans, as in, I'm going to do more for Israel. No, I'm going to do more for Israel. No, I'm going to do more for Israel. And I keep hearing, and again, I empathize when I'm talking about, like, when Jewish folks are listening to this, because it's a complicated issue for us. But just to be clear, we're in no way, shape, or form criticizing Jewish people. When I talk about Israel, I'm talking about what's happening with the government, and what's happening with the war. I recognize and respect every person that's affiliated with it as a citizen or as a Jewish person who considers themselves Jewish or of the Jewish faith. I consider each of you individuals of your own free will, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I have nothing to say actually in that regard. I'm not qualified. I don't know enough to say. But what I can say is that what I see I keep hearing both of our politicians and, Israel itself talking about this word defense. We have the right to defend ourselves, but I just don't see the defense. I mean, I'm not seeing defense. I'm not saying I never see it. Obviously, there's things that they do to defend themselves. But I'm not seeing defense. I'm seeing offense. I'm seeing, like, egregious offense that has nothing to do with defense. It's offense. And so I'm tired of hearing about it. I've seen kids blown up. I've seen too much shit so far. I mean, on and on and on. And that's one reason why it's very clear that the Democrats should not be especially supported by an organization like the NASW or whatnot, and why each individual should be critical of the Democratic Party for such a stance, which they seem to be unequivocally behind. I hear many times, like, I want to be very clear, we unequivocally support Israel's right to defend itself, but I don't see defense, I see offense. And I can't, we're also about life and peace and not down with it. And I'm not down with any political party that continues to send weapons all over the world and put us in a perpetual state of war. You can't be the arbiters of peace while supplying the world with all the weapons. It doesn't really work that way. So that's one reason. And the second reason, there's many reasons, but the second reason would be the level of political corruption. And I would just use, there's many people that there's two angles that I want to take real quick. One would be donations. We could tie this straight to Israel, and you'd say donations from lobbyists, but specifically from foreign lobbyists like Israel, like AIPAC. Mm-hmm. And you just go Google politicians who have received money from AIPAC or donations or whatever, and you're going to see all your favorite, most popular politicians
on both sides.
On both sides, same side of the different side of the same coin, different side of the same aisle, really. That take money from them, and the other side of that of political corruption would be like if you took the leader of the Democratic Party so long, named Nancy Pelosi. You can't criticize Donald Trump for getting rich on everything and then look at someone like Nancy Pelosi, who came into office with a lot more money than most of us have, but a lot less than what she has now. And almost all of that money did not come from her 100+ K salary as a politician, but came from stocks, which have often went right in line with what she knows as
Look at what she has
a
investments
major politician. In. It's very, it's very clear. And if you defend her on that, then I don't have anything to say about it. I think that we're just on different planes of existence and beliefs. If you think that that's what being a public servant equals, is making yourself have hundreds of millions of dollars.
Talk about conflict of interest.
Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to give two very clear reasons why the Democrats shouldn't be supported, and there's a million. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think empathizing with people too. If you're supporting the Democrats, I'm not even telling you not to vote. I think it's your own choice on who you vote for. And I think it's still somewhat reasonable that if you chose to vote for Donald Trump or you chose to vote for Kamala Harris, I could see reasons why people would do both. I don't think they're good reasons, and I don't think you should vote for either. But we're not here to tell you who to vote for, and neither should the NASW or anything like that. We should be talking about the issues, and we should be critical about them. And I doubt that there will ever be a presidential candidate that, from one of those two parties anyways, that aligns with social work values enough to receive an endorsement from the National Association of Social Workers.
It would be a wonderful day if there is. But yeah, highly doubt it. Well, I need to run. I could talk about this all day. And I really do let us know about those challenges. I want to hear how it goes, what comes up for you guys. So peace, everybody.
All right. Well, Alicia's gone, but I'm fortunate enough to be joined and blessed by my good brother, Jerome MT. What's up, bro?
What's going on, brother? Good to see you again.
Yeah. We just saw each other yesterday. We had a little reasoning and planning session. So got a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things we're moving forward in the world with.
Yeah. Excited about it, bro. Oh, man. I don't know. Nothing much. A lot of really being focused on purpose and, really expanding my value system, getting it more in depth, understanding it even greater, expanding what it includes and the areas I understand those values to touch in my life. So just expanding those things for myself, taking time to do so, give myself a little grace for it, study. So it's pretty cool. It's a nice little space to be in, expansion,
Yeah,
How about you?
Let's talk about values. That's what's on my mind now, values. So I think values is something that's very interesting for us to think about, especially when you're looking at social work and whatnot, right? Social work has its own value system the profession of social work has its own value system through the NASW that folks go by. But I found that, especially when we're first introduced to those things and stuff, we don't even truly understand them. And we don't have our own value system set up. We may have a value system set up that we're not aware of and that we haven't been deliberate about. But many of us have never thought about our own values, at least at some point in our life, right? And so I think about, why do you think it's important when we talk about values? And I think about this in the classroom. I think about that in family. I think about that as an individual. Why is it important to live by? Some of us have like rules that we create in a house or rules for ourselves or whatnot. But I'm a big believer in values if we really want to uphold the things that we care about. And so why do you think it's important to have a value system or to be aware of them?
I think, especially within regards to like a value system, like where it's a metric, I think values provide us application for like source virtues. Like if I decide that I find meekness or gentleness or kindness to be a virtue in my life, then my values would help me apply that virtue to aspects of myself. So being kind has a social value within the constraint of my family. And so I want to be kind at family. So then I'll create a family value around kindness. Everyone within the family must behave or engage this way, right? So I find values provide us narratives of application of the things that we want to cultivate in our life, character that we want to cultivate. What do you think about that? That's the way I would organize that.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. And I'll just add that, like let's say you face some kind of ethical dilemma for yourself. And I just mean it could be small, it could be something big, but you face a choice, something that you have a dilemma about and you're not sure how you should respond to it or how you should act. Right? So oftentimes when you have like a rule or even a principle to some degree, but you have it can still be confusing. And the rule, you'll find that while the rule applies in many situations or even most or almost all, it sometimes doesn't always work. It doesn't always apply to the situation based on the circumstance. But if you have a value like kindness, right? If you had a value of to be kind in all situations, for example, it doesn't matter if we're not aware of that and we're not conscious of that value, we may be kind most of the time because we want to be kind, but then we justify it because we were feeling upset or somebody pissed us off or whatever. Because there's a lot of things like that, right? Even like ever talk to customer service these days. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things that could agitate you and irritate you. You could be financially insecure and have something going on and everyone doesn't know about it. And you know, you get angry about it and then you do something that's not kind and you walk away and regret it. But if you had a value system or you had that value in place and you had the capacity, because it's hard to always have the capacity to pull on the values too. But
Yeah.
you make it into almost like a habit or a part ingrained within your life. And so in every circumstances, you're kind of outwardly and inwardly applying that value of kindness. When you get upset or your heart starts pumping up and, you know, all your energy goes up into your head or whatever, and you start, you know, you want to bark out in revenge and spite at someone, you know, that value of kindness might help not only prevent you from doing so, but actually turn that into finding a way to not only, because it's also not kind to yourself when you act that way, but a way to recognize that, you know, it's somewhat normal to feel upset and angry about these situations, but I have a value of kindness. And so I'm going to respond in alignment with my value instead of the way that my body or the way that my emotions are reacting right in this moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's you know, as I stated about me expanding that value system into other applications, I think maybe this is a great place where I would demarcate what a virtue is versus a value, right?
Mm.
So for me, a value is an application of a virtue. So virtues are my source of principles, right? And then the way that that principle is applied into different aspects of my life are values, right? So kindness is one that I have to constantly readjust. Because one, as a man socialized under like the African American context, being kind and being nice is not valuable to much of my social engagement because it puts me in a state of vulnerability that threatens my life and my family's, like, you know, access to resources, etc. So I can't always be kind through, it's not a principle that can behave particularly the same in every situation, right? I've also been a military man. The value of kindness does not play out in war the same that it does in my home, right? But that's a virtue of mine is kindness. So then the application of my values of kindness in war is maybe compassion, right? Instead of allowing you to suffer, maybe I just help you get over it. Maybe I don't engage in the same way, right? There's different value systems for the environment and application that that we want to use or engage these virtues in. So for me, expanding the understanding of kindness, that was a major thing for me too, is understanding what does kindness actually mean. That means that I'm going to treat you in kind. So the way that I would treat myself is the way that I treat you. Kindness doesn't necessarily mean niceness, because nicety, that word means stupidity, actually. It means to behave in a way that makes you seem ignorant, as in to avoid a certain backlash, right? So nicety is a mischief, like it's a mischievous word, right? To be nice means to almost be deceptive, right? To be deceptively dumb or ignorant of something. So I don't want to be nice almost any time. I don't ever want to play that game as an intellectual. That's a game I don't want to play. But kindness is a value that I can apply in multiple areas of my life. So it takes time for me to, one, identify past a value system that I've been taught, especially in like a Western context. I'm taught, oh, this is valuable in the world, so now it should be your virtue at home. So now these applications of virtues now become the way that you behave. It becomes a conditioned mindset of behavior instead of a sovereignty standpoint of this is what I believe and this is how it moves me. But the moment I say, here's my virtue, which is kindness, now I have these values, which is kindness, applied in my life in various ways. And the more that I expand my understanding and more that I experiment with those applications of my understanding, I can now place a kindness value within my home, a way that I'm going to engage the customer service person that gets on my nerves because that's a part of my social, something I deal with all the time, or how I'm going to apply kindness when I'm dealing with my kids or when I'm dealing with my student. right? And the way am I going to give that to my brother? Like me and you, if we exchange kindness, the best way for you to be kind is to be super direct and tell me the most cutting, thing that it can so that I can redirect my thinking, because that's kindness within the framework of brotherhood. Does that expand my meaning a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there were so many pieces I could touch on. I was thinking, Alicia and I were talking earlier about health, and I was telling a story about how been a part of this. I'm not going to be specific because I don't want to talk crap about them. But I've been a part of this thing where you go and it's catered, right? And so they supply the food. And one time, it's a social work event. And for one, the food is not very healthy. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not healthy. But the other side of it is the lady who runs it is very nice. I like how and it fits right along with what you're saying with nice, because once in a while, at least once during the week that we're there, she'll come by and she'll deliver everybody like an ice cream bar or some kind of ice cream thing on a stick at like 9 a.m. And one time my little 4-year-old was there, and she tried to give it to them too. And I view the intent as trying to be really nice and thinking I want to go and be nice to them. But I'm wondering, like, is it actually kind to feed somebody that food at 9 a.m. when they've got to? Because some of the students that are in those things have to be there from like not in class from like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then the 4-year-old daughter too. And so I don't want to criticize this person as like, because their intent is good, but like there's no critical thinking behind it on how it might actually affect the students and the child that you're offering to it. So it's really not kind. And then the other element that I was thinking about, because when you were describing the meaning of kindness, you're going to respond in kind, how you would respond to yourself. Sometimes we're not nice to ourselves, right? And my life experience, and it's gotten much better, and it's a much better place today than it has been. But a lot of times I haven't been kind to myself, and that inner self-talk and the way that I'm treating myself literally reflected the way that, not that I would treat everyone, but like when we're talking, if you use that customer service thing or something like that, when I was being mean to myself, or not showing myself empathy and compassion and being kind to myself, and that goes through everything, through self-talk, through the things you're consuming, everything, then I was much more likely to have that bleed out and react to the customer service agent. Or we talked about family, right? Your family's always there, so they're likely going to be the recipients of it, because if you're not treating yourself well, because they're the ones, just by virtue of being there all the time, right? They're the ones you see the most. So those are the couple things that it made me think about.
Even as you were saying that, it made me reflect too that sometimes we don't respond to the outside world the way that we would treat ourselves, but the way that we expect ourselves to behave, or the way that we've been expected to behave, or we've been treated before, right? Like my kindness can also be a reflection of how I've been treated. So I had a partner, and I'm pretty warm guy, but I'm an entrepreneur as well, right? I've done it and an artist forever. So customer service, being kind to people, being warming, being inviting, being helpful as a customer service practitioner or participant is vital. So when I go to a restaurant, I pay top dollar, I expect good customer service. And so then when I get an unattentive waiter, I get like, yo, what's going on? I deserve to be treated the same way that I would behave as a customer service provider, as someone that runs this business, as somebody that wants to even get a tip. And so sometimes I have to respond to my own kindness and then redirect it, right? Like I can reapply my kindness as it's coming up out of me, because it's just a reflection of who I am. So that kindness can come on and be like, oh, you're kind of being a little bit of a dick, Jay, because you're being Mr. Entrepreneur and demanding this, this level of excellence from this person that may have not had the same training, maybe doesn't have the same desire as you when you're in customer service. And, how can you now behave in another virtue, which might be my virtue of openness or being welcome or Christ consciousness or something. So now my kindness pops up, and that's my resource, my virtue that says, hey, there's ways to apply this properly. And I can attach to another value of being humble, and then saying, hey, Miss Customer Service, Miss Server, I would really prefer if you came over to my left and picked up my food, and instead of being in front of me and my guests at this table and obstructing the view and reaching over our plates, could you just come to the back behind us? We'll turn for you, we'll accommodate you, we'll work with you if you can provide that. Instead of being like, oh, this heifer ain't getting a tip today, right? Like those are ways that I can not only experience kindness within me, but then use it as that awareness to be able to apply it in a new way. So then I can start new narratives, right? So then my application of kindness finds new ways to be practical and beneficial for me. So when you were talking, I was like, yeah, it's not just the way we treat ourselves, but sometimes it's the expectation. Sometimes it's the way we've been treated. And that's us acting in kindness. So then we can also remove that kindness is stipulated on how well received it is by the outside world. So now my kindness doesn't have to be associated with niceties. It doesn't have to be associated with even my own self-centeredness, but it can actually just be, hey, I'm treating you the same way that I would treat myself. Now it's the golden rule, you know? So then how are you treating me, right? And so when we start to talk about like treating things in kind, what pairing are you giving to your situations and your engagement? Are you associating this kind of situation with something in kind to you? And what is that thing that you're saying pairs? Your bad customer service is pairing with my anxiety and anger, when I could maybe find a different place for that customer service to resonate with and therefore produce a different way of kindness, you know? So when you were talking, it made me like analyze that real quick. Like, no, it's not just how I treat myself, but how I expect myself and maybe how I've also been treated.
Yeah, and I can even say that I see that in my personal experience, recent personal experiences. Back when we were in Fairbanks, but we went to a restaurant. The restaurant's a good example. And we went there with the family, and we were excited about it. It was some food that we wanted to eat. It had good reviews. And we sat down, and it was like, when you say bad customer service or whatever, it just wasn't any. And it was actually almost seemed like nefarious, like they were avoiding us and not making eye contact. And it was really bad, put it that way. And so, but what's the point I wanted to make is the language that we used when we talked about it, Alicia and I. It was I could never imagine doing that. If I was a server, I could never imagine treating somebody that way, right? So we're putting my expectations onto them. But like you said, I really don't know what's going on with them. They could be having a bad day. They could have something else on their mind. They could not have been trained with the skills. It could be their first day. I don't know what the hell's going on. And so then it also made me think about what I like about what you're saying, and when you're applying it in such a way, is that it's also logical. If you were to weigh out both sides, right? So you're at the restaurant, the scenario you were given, or even the one I was giving. But let's say on one hand, you get pissed off, you tell them off, and then they either stay away from you or they suck up to you for the rest of the time. You don't leave them a tip. You felt bad about it. You left disgruntled. You bitched about the restaurant. You left them a bad review. They're feeling bad. You're feeling bad. Really nothing was resolved. Maybe you warned somebody on the review. I don't know. But really nothing good came out of it, even though, you had your ego and you felt you needed to respond in such a way. Sometimes it's our pride in certain ways. And then on the other hand, if you thought about it and you reflected to yourself, I'm going to embody the kindness that you were talking about. And you thought about it and you either kindly explained to that or you overlooked it if you didn't think they had the skills or whatever. And the words that you used were kind to them, and maybe even like what you were saying, and you maybe even taught them something. Whatever it is, but you responded in a way that you would want to be treated if you were in that situation.
Yeah.
And you're going to leave feeling good about yourself. You're going to feel better about it. Maybe they still got a good tip and they felt like, wow, I wasn't on my A game today, but they still treated me well. And I really respect that. And so I'm going to treat everyone else better for the rest of the day. I could just think of a number of ways that would lead to positive outcomes all the way around, where the other side would lead to only negative outcomes. So it's very logical, if you were to weigh them out.
Yeah, and like I would think like personally, something that's become really valuable is to understand that both of those scenarios are kindness, right? Like even the one about me saying, yo, this is inappropriate behavior, because that's where it's coming from, right? For me, it was like, yo, this is inappropriate. Like you and Alicia, I would never imagine to behave like that. That's inappropriate, like,
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like this thing is bad. It's just one way to go about it and feel about it and then apply the value or the principle of kindness, right? Like I'm still being kind by saying, yo, you're doing a crap job. And I don't accept it as a patron, right? Like you should not have to sacrifice sovereignty of thinking and thought and feeling and emotion and your ability to express that, especially in a country like the United States of America. If you're going to tell me I got freedom of speech, then don't call me a bad person for saying that this is inappropriate behavior, right? That's a type of kindness. But so is being super forgiving and benevolent and trying to teach somebody. And guess what? They both are probably going to end with crappy service, right? Because the person is not who you're dealing with. We're dealing with ourselves. So it's like, what kindness am I experiencing and what kindness do I want to apply? I think when we take inventory and accountability for these things, it gives us options, right? To see the spectrum in between. And maybe, my character starts to evolve from, looking at these dynamics and understanding that they're both kindness within me. Maybe I can find a nice middle ground so that every time I'm in a crappy situation with customer service, I have a process or a practice, something that keeps me in the ritual of the vibration of that virtue that I have, that I want kindness to project into the world so that I can deal with those situations. So then sometimes it might just be, don't say nothing, or maybe it's for me, right? If I'm at a table and it's my mother and my partner and a lot of children and women, they don't need to see me protect maybe the environment of that table being in harmony and not being disturbed. So maybe I need to get up as a man, go over to the waiter and waitress and handle it outside of that environment. And that's the kindness, because then I don't give them embarrassment, nor do I like present to my children and the women around me of me being like abrupt and forward in a social environment that they think appropriately should be handled with niceness, right? And so I'm learning that, especially as a man, that there's times for me to discern and demarcate the actions and the activities of the virtues that I'm playing out and the values that I apply, right? So it gives me that. It says, oh, there's maneuvering in between me being straight up, nah, this is inappropriate. I'm standing for what I believe, and also making the accommodation for somebody else's, experience and trying to facilitate a harmonious like flow. I can, there's so much in between that might be appropriately applicable for my value or my virtue in that time. And us having a conversation within ourselves gives us the opportunity to choose that more regularly. You know what I mean? And I think it's dope. I think it's so cool how we can do that as humans. A dog is going to be a dog no matter what. It's always going to bark at what it barks at. But a human, we can choose what we bark at. And so it's really amazing that we have that power.
Yeah, and it's something we take for granted, or something that it's not even in our viewpoint at times, that we can make a difference. I've heard so many times from people, it's just the way that I am. That's how I am, and I've said that to myself many times. And it's the stories and the words we use about ourselves are important, right? Because I think about the story that I told about myself not even very long ago, really, if I'm really honest, and I'm sure it leaks into what I still tell about myself sometimes now. But I used to have this, especially the further you go back, but I had this perception of myself as somebody who was like wounded. Even if you go back, you might throw in like cursed or something, but later like wounded, and like whenever things came up, that's how I would look at myself, and that's how I would talk about myself, as this wounded person. And then things shifted, and I started looking at things differently. I performed, some rituals and some activities over time, and then pretty much just organically. It's not like I made a deliberate, literal. I mean, I was deliberate about it, but I didn't sit here and make a literal choice because I didn't get it. It was something that happened very subtly in my life, but it's very clear now. And it's when I look at myself and when I tell stories about myself, either in my own head or talking to somebody else, I tell a different story today. And I'm not a wounded person, but I'm actually a strong person who overcame those wounds and has been, or is in a process of healing, a continuous process of healing, I would say. And it changes everything. It changes everything. It changes, even if I did nothing, it draws more people, if that makes sense. If I do nothing, but I think that way, it draws and it affects my behavior, right? Because if you want to be somebody like that, you can't be walking around when somebody says something you don't like and telling them to fuck off. You know what I mean? You got to be willing to take a breath and listen and have you ever heard of I think his name's Don Miguel Ruiz? There's two of them, him and his dad.
Hmm.
I think they have the four agreements is the one the dad wrote, but the son has a book called I can't think of Shaman's Guide to Wisdom or something like that. But one of the things that he said, the way he described it, and I think there's different ways you could look at it, but one of the things that he says is that everyone's living in kind of a dream. And so you've been at different parts in your dream, and if you look at another person when they make you upset, or you're not agreeing with them, or whatever the case may be, and you can take a step back and you can look at it as an individual who's on a path of their own dream, and they're at a different place than you. Like, it allows me to look at them with a whole different level of respect and acknowledgement, and allow them to just continue on their journey. And hopefully I can be something positive that they interact with, versus, thinking about the guy that lashes out at them or something like that. That's going to have a detrimental and a negative impact on the dream that they're experiencing. And so if you think about somebody having a dream, and if you wanted to impact it, well, you want to make that dream better, right? You want to contribute to it, and you don't want to criticize somebody for being in a part of a dream that, to a large part, they haven't had so much control, or at least they are not aware that they have the control, to change that. And so whenever I look at somebody like that, and I'm like and my mind is criticizing them, and I'm thinking, why don't you just do this, or why don't you do that? Because I'm a teacher, I'm a social worker, I'm a human, I'm a father. Even with my kids, I come across it all the time. When I can step back and I look at the individual, the human being that I'm interacting with, and I look at them in such a way that, like, hey, this person's on their own journey, walking through their dream, going down the path. I don't have any right to judge them on where they're at, because I really have no idea. I want to look at them with empathy and with kindness, with compassion, much like I would want them to look at me when I was in a similar part of my own dream. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's it's interesting, and especially with that, with like that metaphor, using a dream, or us having multiple or having different dreams that are engaging in the same space. Um, from my like Zen training and education, we are taught to identify that there are multiple scenarios that are coming in, right? Like your perspective and this person's perspective, these are all like full worlds that are just coming in, and I get to see it from my perspective only. But a lot of our teaching, especially with stories and narrative, in the traditional world and in the, like spiritual development world, a lot of our stories teach us to identify with multiple people within the story simultaneously. So then I'm not looking at myself as like what the Western world is very much engaged in, which is like the hero narrative only. So we all go in trying to be the hero, right? Which is why we got like the Avengers, because everybody needs to be a hero on the team, right? But before, it was like just Superman, just Batman. It was these very linear things where they wanted you to now lead this story, and everything was purpose for and to you, right? Um, well, in the ancient traditions, the story of the guy that was the hero, all of his companions, the guy that he was fighting, all of their companions, the city and town that it was in, the dog that came and talked to you, they were all aspects of ourselves. So then when we were engaging and we could see, oh, I'm dealing with the perspective of the dog. So I'm dealing with someone that has this character, this environment, this world view. And that's what's engaging. That world view is coming in with the person that's moving this story along and is providing this benefit, right? So then the old education of our, more traditional values and storytelling, they were saying to us, we already know that there are world views that are engaging when you're coming into contact with one another. So here are ways for you to identify parts of yourself within various world views, so that when you do engage, you're not thinking you against this worldview, but you're thinking of you within the complex story of all of these things together. So now it's like, what is appropriate for my narrative? Like you can then say, oh, okay, You got your own narrative, great. But for my narrative to maintain its integrity, I need to tell you to back off. Like that's what's appropriate for me right now because my story is in a place where I need to defend my family, right? Or I need to defend this virtue or value. And that comes into play. And I think that's one of those things, especially for me as a person that I like strongly identified as a Black American, me being able to understand that I wasn't dealing me against the world, but I was dealing with multiple worldviews that were almost invading my, mental territory and and I had to learn how to engage with these other worldviews instead of trying to put myself and pin them against it. These stories started to change my mind, like you said, very organically and subtly, to where I started to view and engage them differently because now you're a part of my story instead of something that's trying to like be the antithesis to my projection and progress. So I find the extending of those values and adding multiple layers and being able to see ourselves more collectively within those like stories help me a lot to be able to find what's appropriate and also give me the grace of non-perfection, so I don't have to pick it right according to the way that it ends and result. Because sometimes the right application doesn't yield an effective or even positive result, but it was the right thing to do. And so I'm also constantly, um, I'm almost weary of accepting any competitive nature for my time or my space. So everything has to be more inclusive and more unified. So if this other worldview comes into play, it's better for me to include them within the story and framework of my narrative than it is for me to oppose it or to fight that off. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
that's, something that I'm working with in my mind a lot lately.
Yeah, it's beautifully said, and I think that we gotta, you know, keep having these conversations because I think we touch on one element and we could talk for a couple of hours and
Yeah,
just kind of cruising through them. I think we should definitely talk again next week. I got to go now because I've had my kids in the room for an hour and a half now, so I got to get to them. But we've been doing the social worker challenges where we're challenging social workers, and by social worker I don't mean just people that work in as a with the title of a social worker, but anybody that does any kind of social work, which is pretty much everyone to some degree. But we've been offering the social worker challenges. We just started them this week. Alicia challenged folks to change one sugary drink to water. I challenge folks to use their imagination to see themselves in the future operating on a more healthy level, to identify what things they changed and how they would feel, and to make a couple of changes or something along those lines. And so, good brother, I wanted to invite you to offer up a challenge um, that we could share with the people. A challenge for them to be more healthy, to be better, whatever it is.
got it. Okay, this is my challenge. Um, Anytime you experience heightened emotion, whether it's heightened joy, whether it's heightened peace, whether it's heightened anxiety or agitation, I want you to take a deep breath, trying to fill up your whole body with air, and then release for a very slow count of 6, right? So it would look like this, right? I started giving this to all of my students as their very first exercise because I learned a long time ago that anytime you want to consciously choose a response, it takes roughly 15 to 60 seconds to allow your brain to switch off from a reactive to a responsive mechanism. And so just doing that inhale and release for a count of 6 will give you enough time to turn off the switch and choose a response rather than to react unconsciously, right? So that's my challenge. Take a deep breath, let it out for 6 seconds, and then respond to your environment. And maybe your hyper excitement, you won't go, yay! But instead you'll run and you'll give that person a hug. And instead of cussing somebody out, maybe you'll give them a word that'll inspire them. Let's try it out. I think that's a great challenge.
All right, this is the Social Worker Challenge from my brother Jerome MT. Let us know about how it went for you. Let us know in the comments. Send me an email, whatever. Let us know. That's what this is all about. We want to know, how these things work for you, how it changed your life. But yeah, good brother MT. It's good to dialogue and get into a little. Although it was short this time, a short reasoning session is better than none at all, right?
I love it. I love it. Anytime with you, bro.
Yeah. Well, I'll be talking to you tomorrow, but in the meantime, take care, bro, and we'll get this up and posted on Thursday.
Awesome. Sounds great, bro. Love you. Take care. Peace.
All right, bro, everyone. Take care. Thanks for listening, and peace.
You've been listening to the Revolutionary Social Work Podcast, and we just want to say thank you for your continued support. You can catch us on YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify. Remember to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share our content with the world. But most of all, never forget to keep being revolutionary. Peace.